She was his assistant for 3 years. He never looked at her twice. Then she got desperate, listed herself on a secret auction to save her dying mother. Someone paid $500,000 for one night with her. When she removed the blindfold, it was him, her boss. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story will break your heart, and then put it back together in ways you never expected. Now, here's what happened the night Freya Evans discovered her boss was bidder number 7. Freya Evans had been in love with her boss for 3 years, and he had no idea she existed. Well, that wasn't entirely true. Damien Cross knew she existed in the way you know your coffee maker exists. Useful. Reliable. Completely unremarkable. She was the woman who kept his schedule organized, his coffee hot, and his life running smoothly while he built his empire one ruthless business deal at a time. At 25, Freya had perfected the art of being invisible. She dressed in neutral colors, kept her head down, and never made eye contact longer than necessary. It was safer that way. Safer than letting him see the way her hands trembled when he stood too close, or the way her breath caught when his cologne drifted past her desk. Damien Cross was 32, devastatingly handsome, and colder than a Chicago winter. The kind of man who could destroy careers with a single email and buy companies the way normal people bought groceries. His suits cost more than Freya's rent, and his gray eyes were the exact shade of storm clouds before lightning struck. So she loved him quietly, privately, in the way you love something you know you'll never have. Until the day everything changed. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. Her mother's neighbor. The words came in fragments that didn't make sense at first. Collapse. Ambulance. Hospital. She remembered dropping the files, papers scattering across the marble floor like snow, and running. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Her mother looked so small in that bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred with mechanical indifference. Stage 4 cancer, the doctor said. Aggressive. Advanced. They'd caught it too late. But there was hope. Experimental treatment in Germany. A clinical trial showing promising results. Her mother could have years instead of months. The cost was $350,000. Treatment had to start within 3 weeks or the window would close. Freya had $8,000 in her savings account. She spent the next 4 days trying everything. Bank loans denied. Credit cards maxed out. Crowdfunding campaigns that raised a few $100s from sympathetic strangers. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. It happened in the women's bathroom at the office on a Friday afternoon. Freya was crying in one of the stalls when 2 women walked in. Marketing executives. The kind of women who wore designer heels and had trust funds. Did you see Laura's new car? One of them said. That's from the list, the other replied. She made $500,000 in one night. Freya held her breath, listening. An auction. Ultra-exclusive. Wealthy men bidding on companionship. Some women list virginity. All legal, all contracted, all anonymous if you want it to be. Their voices faded as they left. Freya sat frozen, her mind racing. An auction. $500,000 in one night. It was disgusting. Degrading. Everything she'd been raised to believe was wrong. It was also her mother's only chance at survival. That night, Freya sat in her tiny apartment with her laptop open and her hands shaking. The website looked legitimate. Professional. Women set their own terms, their own prices, their own boundaries. Medical verification required. Contracts enforced. Anonymity guaranteed if desired. She thought about her mother's face in that hospital bed. Thought about the machines keeping her alive. Thought about having to tell her there was no hope, no treatment, no future. Then she clicked Create Profile. She took photos wearing a black lace mask, careful to show her body but not her face. The camera captured her curves, her pale skin, her long dark hair. She looked like a stranger. Someone brave and desperate and willing to do whatever it took. Freya's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed, "One night only. Virgin. Complete anonymity required. Minimum bid, $300,000. The profile went live at midnight. By morning, she had 17 messages. By noon, the auction date was set for the following Friday. Freya went to work that week like a ghost going through the motions of being alive. She smiled at Damien when he barked orders. She organized his files with shaking hands. She brought him coffee and pretended her entire world wasn't about to explode in 5 days. What Freya didn't know was that Damien Cross had been looking at her for 3 years. Really looking. The way a man looks at something he wants but can't have. The way a man looks at a line he knows he shouldn't cross. And when he stumbled across her profile on that auction site 2 days before the event, something inside him snapped. Because Damien Cross had spent his entire life acquiring things. Companies. Properties. Power. And now, apparently, he was going to acquire his assistant. Even if it meant paying $400,000 to do it. The week crawled by. Every morning Freya woke up thinking maybe she'd imagined it all. But then she'd check her phone and see the messages. Men asking questions. Men making offers outside the auction. Men treating her profile like a product listing. She ignored them all. The auction was Friday night. At work, Damien was particularly demanding that week. Reports redone. Meetings rescheduled. Coffee remade because it was half a degree too cool. Freya moved through the office like a robot, anticipating his needs before he vocalized them. On Thursday afternoon, she caught him staring at her. Actually staring, not just glancing. His grey eyes were fixed on her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Is something wrong, Mr. Cross?" she asked. He blinked, and whatever she'd seen in his expression vanished behind his usual mask of professional indifference. "The Yamamoto contract. I need it by 5. It's already on your desk, sir. Left side, under the quarterly projections." Something flickered across his face. He nodded once and went back to his computer screen. What she didn't know was that Damien hadn't slept in 3 days. Not since he'd recognized her profile on that website. He'd recognized her immediately. Not from her face, but from everything else. The way she held herself. The curve of her shoulder. That particular shade of dark hair that caught the light in his office every morning. Damien had spent 3 years maintaining professional distance from Freya Evans. 3 years pretending he didn't notice the way she bit her lower lip when concentrating. 3 years ignoring the fact that she was beautiful and smart and the only person in his entire company who seemed to give a damn about anything beyond their paycheck. He'd maintained that distance because it was the right thing to do. She worked for him. She depended on him for her livelihood. Any advance he made would be inherently coercive. But now she'd put herself on that auction site. Now she was offering herself to the highest bidder. Now some stranger was going to have her, touch her, take from her something precious. The thought made him physically ill. So he'd made a decision. If Freya was going to go through with this, then he was going to make damn sure that bidder was him. Friday arrived. The auction was held at a mansion in the suburbs. Old money. The kind of place with a circular driveway and columns that served no structural purpose. Freya arrived at 7, her heart trying to break through her ribcage. A woman in a sleek black suit checked her ID, verified her medical clearance, and handed her a black silk mask. "Keep this on at all times unless the winner requests otherwise. Your safety is our priority. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or wish to withdraw, use the safe word in your contract." Freya nodded, not trusting her voice. Inside were 3 other women, all masked, all silent. They looked at each other with a mixture of solidarity and competition. Sisters in desperation. At 7:30, an elegant older woman appeared. "Ladies, it's time. You'll be called individually. When you enter, you'll be blindfolded. You will not see the bidders, and they will not see your faces unless you choose to reveal yourself after the sale is complete." Freya was called third. They led her down a corridor that smelled of expensive wood and older money. Someone tied a silk blindfold over her mask, and the world went dark. She heard a door open. Heard the murmur of male voices go quiet. Felt the weight of attention settle on her like a physical thing. A man's voice, smooth and professional, spoke to the room. 25 years old. Verified virgin. 1 night only. Minimum bid 300,000. "Gentlemen, shall we begin?" 300,000, someone said. Older voice. Rough around the edges. 325, another countered. Younger. Eager. The bids climbed. 350. 375. 400,000. At 400,000, there was a pause. The auctioneer was about to call it when a new voice entered the bidding. 450. Something about that voice made Freya's skin prickle. Something familiar in the tone, though she couldn't place it through the distortion of the blindfold and her own panic. 460, the older voice counted. 500,000, the familiar voice said, and this time there was steel beneath the smoothness. This conversation is over. Silence. 500,000 going once. Twice. Sold to bidder number 7. Freya's knees nearly gave out. $500,000. Enough for her mother's treatment with money left over. Enough to change everything. They led her out of the auction room and down another corridor. She heard a door open and close. Heard footsteps following her. Then silence as whoever had escorted her left. She was alone with him now. The man who'd paid $500,000 for one night with her. Freya stood in the center of what she assumed was a bedroom, still blindfolded, her hands trembling at her sides. She heard him move closer. Heard the soft sound of papers being placed on a table. The contract needs both signatures, he said. That voice. God, why did she know that voice? Someone guided her hand to a pen, then to paper. She signed. She heard him sign as well, the pen scratching across expensive paper with confidence. More movement. The sound of the door opening and closing again as the witness left. Now they were truly alone. She heard him step closer. Felt the heat of his body though he wasn't touching her yet. Smelled cologne that her hindbrain recognized even if her conscious mind refused to make the connection. His hand touched her face, gentle despite everything. His fingers traced the line of her jaw, then moved to the back of her head where the blindfold was tied. You can take it off now, Freya, he said softly. She froze. He'd said her name. Her hands flew to the blindfold, ripping it off along with the mask beneath. She blinked in the sudden light, her eyes adjusting, and then focused on the man standing in front of her. Damien Cross. Her boss. The man she'd loved in silence for 3 years. Standing in a private suite, having just paid $500,000 to own her for one night. The room tilted. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Mr. Cross, she whispered. He smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. Just possession and something darker she couldn't name. I paid $500,000 for you, Freya. I think we're past Mr. Cross, don't you? She tried to back away. Her legs hit the edge of the bed. I can't, you're my boss, this isn't. He stepped closer, loosening his tie with one hand. The gesture was casual but somehow threatening. The contract is signed, Damien said, his voice dropping lower. One night. That's what you agreed to. That's what I paid for. But you, why would you? Because you're mine, Freya. You've been mine since the day you walked into my office. I just never had the right to claim you before. Tonight, I have that right. His hand came up to cup her face, and despite everything, despite the horror and humiliation, Freya's body responded to his touch. Tonight, you're not my assistant. You're not my employee. You're just a woman who made a deal. And I'm the man who intends to collect. Freya's mind raced for escape routes, for explanations, for anything that made sense. But there was nowhere to go. The contract was signed. The money was transferred. And the man she'd loved for 3 years was looking at her like she was something he'd purchased. Which, technically, she was. I'm not going to hurt you, Damien said, his voice gentler now. I would never hurt you. Then let me go. I can't do that either. He stepped back, giving her space but blocking the door. His grey eyes studied her face like he was memoizing every detail. Every fear. Every tear she refused to let fall. Tell me why, he said finally. Why the auction? The question broke something in Freya's chest. Of course he didn't know. How could he? My mother, she heard herself say. Stage 4 cancer. There's a treatment in Germany but it costs everything I don't have. Something changed in Damien's expression. The predatory edge softened into something almost human. You needed money. I needed a miracle. The auction was the closest thing available. You could have asked me. Freya laughed, and it came out bitter. Asked you? You barely know I exist, Mr. Cross. I'm the woman who brings you coffee. Why would you care if my mother lives or dies? You think I don't see you? His voice rose, control slipping. You think I haven't spent 3 years watching you? Wanting you? knowing I couldn't touch you because you work for me and it would be wrong. The confession hung in the air between them. Freya stared at him, unable to process the words. I've noticed everything, Damien continued, quieter now. Every time you bite your lip when you're nervous. Every time you stay late without being asked. Every time you bring me coffee exactly how I like it without needing to ask. I see you, Freya. I've always seen you. Then why did you buy me instead of just helping me? He ran a hand through his hair, the first gesture of uncertainty she'd ever seen from him. Because I'm a bastard. Because when I saw your profile, when I realized what you were about to do, I couldn't stand the thought of someone else having you. I couldn't let some stranger touch you, hurt you, take something from you that you were only selling because you were desperate. So you thought you'd take it instead? I thought I'd protect you. And take what I've wanted for 3 years in the process. The honesty was almost worse than the deception. At least deception she could hate. This brutal truth left her nowhere to direct her anger. Freya sat down on the edge of the bed because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Damien stayed where he was, watching her, waiting. What happens now? She asked finally. That depends on you. We can sit here and talk until sunrise if that's what you want. Or I can take you home. The money is still yours. The contract will be considered fulfilled. And if I want to leave, then I'll take you home. Freya looked up at him, searching his face for lies. But all she saw was exhaustion and something that might have been longing. Why did you really bid? She asked. Damien crouched down in front of her so they were eye level. This close, she could see flecks of silver in his grey eyes. Could see the shadow of stubble on his jaw. Because I've been in love with you for 3 years, he said simply. And I'm not noble enough to let another man have you, even if it makes me a monster. The words hit her like a physical blow. Love. He'd said love. You don't love me, Freya whispered. You don't even know me. I know you take your coffee with too much cream and not enough sugar. I know you're allergic to lilies but love daisies. I know you read romance novels on your lunch break. I know you volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends. I know you sing when you think no one's listening. Each fact landed like proof of surveillance or devotion. Freya couldn't decide which. That's not love. That's observation. Then call it obsession. It doesn't change the fact that you're here, I'm here, and we have until sunrise to figure out what this is. He stood and offered her his hand. Everything in her screamed that this was wrong. That she should run. But her mother was dying, and this man had just given her the means to save her. This man who claimed to have loved her for 3 years while she loved him back in silence. Freya took his hand. Damien pulled her to her feet. For a moment they just stood there, hands clasped, neither quite sure how to move forward. I should offer you wine, Damien said. I don't want wine. I want answers. When did you see my profile? 3 days ago. Tuesday night. 3 days. He'd known for 3 days and said nothing. You could have stopped me, Freya said, anger rising. You could have offered me a loan, done literally anything besides let me go through with it. I know. Then why didn't you? Damien's jaw clenched. Because I'm selfish. Because the thought of you with someone else made me violent. Because I wanted you so badly that I convinced myself this was the only way I could have you. Did you know it was me when you placed the first bid? His face gave him away. You knew from the beginning. Freya's voice shook. The whole thing was orchestrated. You wanted me desperate enough that I'd sell myself, and then you could swoop in and buy me. That's not what happened. Then what happened? Make it make sense. I saw your profile, and I panicked. The thought of someone else touching you. I couldn't. So I made sure I'd be the highest bidder. I told myself it was to protect you, but you're right. It was selfish. I wanted you, and I used your desperation to get you. The admission should have made things better. But it just made everything worse. Damien moved closer. I've wanted you for 3 years. But I couldn't touch you. You work for me. So I paid for the right to do what I've wanted to do since the day you walked into my office. He kissed her. Not gentle. She was overwhelmed, fear, attraction, confusion all twisted together. Her body betrayed her. She responded to him even as her mind screamed that this was wrong. I've never, she managed. I know. I'll make it good for you. And he tried. He was gentle and patient and thorough. He took his time learning what made her gasp, what made her arch into his touch. When he finally pushed inside her, Freya understood why people wrote poetry about this moment. It hurt, yes. But it also felt like completion. He held himself still, giving her time to adjust. Okay, he managed. Move, she breathed. The experience was overwhelming, emotional, nothing like she expected. Afterwards, she was crying, and he was holding her. That wasn't just sex, was it? He asked quietly. She couldn't answer. When she woke up, she was alone. The bed beside her was cold. Envelope on the pillow, bank transfer confirmation for $500,000. Note, see you at the office Monday. 8 a.m. sharp. D. Her stomach dropped. She had to face him at work. She had the money to save her mother. But at what cost? Monday morning arrived with all the mercy of a firing squad. Freya stood outside the building, staring up at the glass and steel structure. Her mother's treatment was scheduled to start in 2 days. The money was safely in her account. The impossible had become possible. But the cost was standing upstairs in a corner office, probably drinking coffee like he hadn't fundamentally altered her existence 3 nights ago. The elevator ride up felt like ascending toward her own execution. By the time she reached the executive level, Freya's hands were shaking. His office door was closed. That was unusual. The closed door felt like a boundary being drawn. Freya made coffee in the small kitchenette. 2 sugars, splash of cream, temperature just below scalding. 3 years of practice meant she could do it without thinking. She carried the coffee to his office and knocked softly. Come in. His voice sent electricity down her spine. The same voice that had whispered in her ear 3 nights ago. Freya opened the door and stepped inside. Damien sat behind his desk, perfectly pressed suit, hair immaculate, expression completely neutral. He could have been carved from ice. Coffee, Miss Evans, he said, his tone absolutely professional. And I need the Henderson files. Miss Evans. Not Freya. Not even a flicker of recognition. The Henderson files are already on your desk, Mr. Cross. Left side, under the quarterly reports. Something flickered across his face. Then it was gone. Thank you. That will be all. Dismissed. Like she was nothing. Like Friday night had been a dream. The day crawled forward. Damien was his usual demanding self. Every request was delivered in that same cold, professional tone that gave away nothing. But when others weren't looking, Freya caught him staring at her. His grey eyes would track her movements. The moment she noticed, he'd look away. It was torture. The week passed in that same horrible pattern. By day, Damien was ice. Professional, distant. But there were moments. His hand would brush hers when she handed him documents. He'd stand just slightly too close when reviewing presentations. His voice would drop half an octave when they were alone. Freya was going insane. She couldn't tell if he was playing games or if she was inventing meaning. Friday afternoon, an email arrived. Subject line, tonight. Message, my penthouse. 8 p.m. Don't be late. She shouldn't go. The contract was fulfilled. Friday night had been one night. But at 7:45 p.m., she found herself standing outside his penthouse building, her finger hovering over the buzzer. She pressed it. The elevator opened directly into his apartment. Expensive. Minimalist. Damien stood by the windows, silhouetted against the city lights. You came, he said. You summoned. That's not why you came. No, it wasn't. Freya had come because 5 days of torture had been enough to prove that Friday night hadn't been enough. For either of them. Why did you ask me here? She said. Damien moved toward her, predatory grace and focused intensity. Because one night wasn't enough. Because I've spent 5 days pretending I don't want you, and it's killing me. Because I want to keep you. He stopped in front of her, close enough to touch but not touching. Keep me, Freya repeated flatly. I want you to stay. I want more time with you. I want to not have to pretend at work that I don't know exactly how you taste. Heat flooded her body, but anger came with it. And what exactly are you proposing? Damien pulled out a folder. Inside were papers. A contract. Of course it was a contract. Freya scanned the document. Extended arrangement. 3 months. 50,000 per month. Same terms as original agreement. Discretion required. No one can know. She looked up at him. You're trying to buy me again. Your mother's treatment is ongoing. She'll need care, medication, follow-up appointments. This money ensures she gets everything she needs. The manipulation was surgical in its precision. Why me? You could have anyone. But I want you, Damien said simply. Freya looked down at the contract again. 50,000 a month for 3 months. That was security for her mother. That was the difference between basic care and the best care. That was also agreeing to be Damien Cross's possession for 3 more months. She picked up the pen and signed the contract. Damien exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. He signed below hers. 3 months, she said, needing to establish some boundary. 3 months, Damien agreed. Then he kissed her, and all thoughts of boundaries dissolved. He made love to her that night with a focus that felt almost desperate. Like he was trying to memorize every sound she made. Afterward, lying in his bed, Freya stared at the ceiling and wondered when she'd stopped being the victim and become a willing participant in her own destruction. What are you thinking? Damien asked quietly. That I'm an idiot. Because some part of me wants this to be real. And that part is going to destroy me when this ends. Damien's arm tightened around her. What if it doesn't end? Everything ends. Especially things built on contracts instead of choice. He was quiet. Then, so softly she almost missed it. This was your choice, Freya. I gave you an out. You signed anyway. And that was the worst part. He was right. She'd signed the contract. She'd agreed to the terms. She'd chosen this. Because 3 months of having him was better than nothing. 2 months passed in a blur of contradictions. By day, Freya was Miss Evans, efficient assistant. By night, she was simply Freya, the woman who was drowning in feelings she couldn't afford to have. Her mother's treatment was going well. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. There was talk of remission. But Freya was falling apart emotionally. In the office, he was cold, demanding, treating her like staff. In his bed, he was possessive, passionate, almost tender. The whiplash was destroying her. Things got more complicated in the 7th week when Victoria Chen joined the company. New hire, brought in to head up marketing. She was everything Freya wasn't. Polished, sophisticated, ambitious. She wore designer suits and had the kind of confidence that made board members pay attention. Victoria took one look at Damien Cross and decided he was her next acquisition. Freya watched it happen. The way Victoria would lean just slightly too close during meetings. The way she'd laugh at things that weren't particularly funny. The way she'd touch his arm. Damien was professional with her. Polite but distant. But he didn't shut it down either. Victoria cornered Freya in the break room one afternoon. You've worked for Mr. Cross for a while, haven't you? Victoria said. 3 years, Freya replied. He's quite something. So driven. So focused. The implication was clear. Working for him. Not with him. Know your place. Mr. Cross is an excellent employer, Freya said blandly. Victoria smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. I just think it's important that everyone understands their role. Mr. Cross needs someone on his level. Partnership, not service. She walked away, leaving behind the clear message. You're just his assistant, and I'm his equal. Freya wanted to scream. Wanted to tell this polished shark that she knew Damien better than anyone. But she couldn't. The contract required discretion. The company gala arrived in week 8. Major event. Freya was there coordinating logistics. She wore a simple black dress, appropriate for staff. Damien arrived late. He looked devastating in his tuxedo. Victoria found him within minutes. She looked stunning in a red dress, all calculated confidence. She laughed at something Damien said, her hand resting on his arm. Freya watched from across the room and felt something crack in her chest. This was what people like Damien ended up with. Not struggling assistants who sold themselves. Sophisticated professionals who could match him. She couldn't watch anymore. She slipped out, heading for the bathroom where she could fall apart in private. The bathroom door opened. There you are. Damien. In the women's bathroom. What are you doing in here? Freya asked. Looking for you. You left. I needed air. You needed to stop watching me with Victoria. It wasn't a question. Freya's cheeks flushed. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I saw your face. The contract says discretion, Mr. Cross. What you do at company events is none of my business. Stop calling me that. Not when we're alone. It's your name. Not when you're looking at me like I've hurt you. I wasn't flirting with her. It doesn't matter if you were. It matters to me. Why? This is an arrangement. You can do whatever you want. And if I only want you? The words hung in the air. For 4 more weeks, she said quietly. Then the contract expires, and you move on. What if I don't want it to expire? Then you'll write up a new contract with new terms, and I'll sign it because I'm weak and stupid and in love with you. The confession escaped before she could stop it. Damien's expression shifted. You love me, he said, like he was testing the words. I love you. I've loved you for 3 years. But wanting isn't loving, and when this ends, I'm going to have to pretend my heart isn't broken. Damien stared at her. Then he laughed, but it sounded bitter. You think I don't love you? Freya, I bought you because I couldn't stand the thought of anyone else having you. I wrote that contract because I'm too broken to know how to have you any other way. I watch you every day and know that I'm destroying something precious by turning it into a transaction, but I don't know how to stop. Then let me go. I can't. You have to. Because this is destroying both of us. Before Damien could respond, his phone buzzed. Victoria, asking where he was. The interruption felt symbolic. Reality intruding. You should go back to the gala, Freya said. Your equal is waiting for you. Freya. Please. Just go. He left. Freya waited until she heard the door close, then sank down onto the marble floor and cried. She didn't know it yet, but in 4 days, she'd discover she was pregnant. And in 5 days, she'd make the decision to disappear. Because loving Damien Cross had always been impossible. But carrying his child while watching him move on? That was heartbreak she couldn't survive. The contract had 4 weeks left. But Freya was going to end it early. 1 week left on the contract. Freya missed her period 3 days after the gala. She didn't think much of it at first. Stress could do that. But then came the nausea. The exhaustion. The way certain smells made her stomach rebel. She bought a pregnancy test on her lunch break. Took it in the office bathroom. 2 lines. Clear and undeniable. Pregnant. Freya sat on that toilet seat and stared at the test until the lines blurred. She was pregnant with her boss's baby. Pregnant with the child of a man who'd bought her, kept her under contract, and still couldn't figure out how to want her without turning it into a transaction. The contract expired in 7 days. He didn't want a relationship. He wanted an arrangement. This pregnancy was definitely not part of the arrangement. Freya made a decision. She wouldn't tell him. She'd finish out the week, collect her final payment, and disappear. She had enough money saved. Enough to relocate, find a new job, raise this baby somewhere far away. She'd spare him the obligation. Spare herself the humiliation. Freya pulled away emotionally over that final week. Damien noticed. What's changed? He asked on Tuesday night. Nothing. Contract's almost over. We both knew this was temporary. His jaw clenched but he said nothing. Thursday night came, the second to last night. They sat in his living room like strangers. I need you to understand something, Damien said. This was never just business for me. Could have fooled me. I love you, Freya. I don't know how to do this without contracts because contracts are the only thing I know. But that doesn't make it any less real. Freya felt tears burn behind her eyes. She couldn't do this. Couldn't sit here and listen to him confess feelings while her body was growing his child. Love isn't enough, she said quietly. Then what is? Trust. Partnership. Equality. Things we've never had because you bought me. You think this was just business for me, he shouted. Wasn't it? You bought me. Because it was the only way I could have you. The confession stunned them both. I've wanted you since the day you started working for me. But I couldn't cross that line. You were my employee. Then I saw your profile on that site and I... Wait. You saw my profile? Her blood ran cold. Yes. And I knew I had to. How long before the auction did you see it? His silence answered. How long? 2 days before. 2 days. She was reeling. You had 2 days and you didn't just help me? You let me go through with that humiliation. I didn't let you. You planned it. You wanted me desperate enough to sell myself so you could buy me without guilt. That's not. Did you know it was me when you placed the first bid? His face gave it away. You knew from the beginning. She laughed bitterly. The whole thing was orchestrated. Get out, Freya said. Freya. Get out. She grabbed her things and headed for the door. Damien caught her arm. Freya, please. Don't touch me. She made it 3 steps before the nausea hit. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick. Damien followed, holding her hair back. Are you okay? He asked. I'm fine. Just stressed. This isn't stress. How long have you been getting sick? It doesn't matter. She tried to stand, and the room spun. Damien caught her. His eyes scanned her face, then dropped to the bathroom counter where she'd left her purse. Where prenatal vitamins were visible through the open zipper. Everything stopped. Freya, he said carefully. Are you pregnant? She could lie. She'd lie. But she was so tired. Yes. The word hung in the air. Damien's grip tightened. Is it mine? Of course it's yours. Who else would it be? How long have you known? 3 days. And you weren't going to tell me? No. I wasn't. Why? The question came out rough. Because you don't want a relationship. You want contracts. This wasn't part of the deal. I wasn't going to force you into something you don't want. You think I wouldn't want my own child? I think you'd try to buy your way into being a father the way you bought your way into my bed. And I can't watch you turn our child into another acquisition. Damien sank down to sit on the bathroom floor. He looked wrecked. Is it mine? He asked again, softer. Does it matter? It's the only thing that matters. Freya slid down to sit across from him. Yes. It's yours. And you were just going to leave. Take my child and disappear. I was going to spare you the obligation. Obligation. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think that's what this would be? What else would it be? You don't love me. Not really. I told you at the gala that I love you. You told me you don't know how to have me without contracts. That's not love. That's possession. He was quiet for a long time. You're right. About all of it. I used your desperation. I turned something that should have been simple into a transaction because that's the only way I know how to connect with people. I've spent my entire life acquiring things. I thought I could acquire you too. But it's not real when you buy it. No. It's not. He looked at her, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Freya. For the auction. For the contracts. For turning something precious into a transaction. You deserved better. The apology broke something in her chest. This was the first time he'd actually admitted fault. What do we do now? Freya asked. That's your choice. I won't force you to do anything. You're the father. You have rights. Rights I won't use if you don't want me involved. If you want to disappear, raise our child alone, I'll let you. But I won't force myself into your life. Just like that? You'll walk away. If that's what you want, yes. First time he'd given her real choice. She stuttered him. I don't know if I can trust you. Then let me earn it. However long it takes. And what do you want? You. The baby. A life together. A real one. Not a contract. Just us. And if I say no? Pain crossed his face. Then I'll support you from a distance. But I won't force myself into your life. I don't know if I can trust you, she admitted. I know. I don't know if you'll ever be able to love me the way I need to be loved. I'll spend the rest of my life trying if you let me. Freya closed her eyes. Walk away and raise her child alone. Or stay and try to build something real with a man who'd proven he didn't know how to love without owning. I need time, she said finally. How much time? I don't know. Weeks. Maybe months. I need to figure out what I want without you paying me or pressuring me. Damien nodded slowly. Okay. Take all the time you need. And you'll leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. But I'll be here when you're ready. If you're ever ready. Freya pulled herself to her feet. Damien stood too, keeping distance between them. Thank you for understanding, she said. Thank you for not hating me as much as I deserve. She left his penthouse that night. The contract expired 2 days later. The money stopped. The text stopped. Damien kept his word and left her alone. And Freya tried to convince herself that alone was what she wanted. But by the next week, she'd already made another decision. She was going to disappear completely. Take her mother, take her savings, and start over somewhere Damien Cross could never find her. What she didn't know was that Damien had already started looking for her. And Damien Cross didn't accept defeat. Ever. Damien stood in the empty apartment and felt the weight of his mistakes. She was gone. Really gone. The apartment was stripped clean. Everything personal was gone. She'd disappeared completely. Panic hit him. She was pregnant with his child, and she'd vanished because he'd been too broken to know how to love her properly. He mobilized resources. Hired investigators. Traced her movements. The trail went cold in Boston. Damien spent 2 weeks searching. Nothing. It was like Freya Evans had ceased to exist. At work, he was a disaster. His COO, Marco, finally cornered him after hours. What happened? Marco asked. Damien told him everything. The auction. The contracts. The pregnancy. Marco listened. When Damien finished, his friend was quiet. So you manipulated a desperate woman, bought her, kept her under contract, got her pregnant, and now she's gone. And you're surprised. I love her. Did you ever tell her that in a way that didn't involve money? Damien opened his mouth, then closed it. Had he? Really? You destroyed the only thing that mattered because you're too broken to know how to love someone without owning them. She's gone, Marco. I can't find her. Then find her harder. The search continued. Weeks turned into a month. Then, 6 weeks after she'd disappeared, his investigator called. Found a hospital transfer for Margaret Evans. Stage 4 cancer patient. Transferred to a facility upstate. Small town called Riverview. Next of kin listed as Freya Evans. Damien's heart stopped. You're sure? It's her. Damien made the 3-hour drive that same day. Riverview was small, quiet. The care facility was modest but well-maintained. He went inside and asked for Margaret Evans. The receptionist was suspicious. Are you family? I'm her daughter's employer. I need to speak with her about an urgent work matter. The lie came easily. The receptionist made a call, then shook her head. Ms. Evans isn't taking visitors right now. I'll wait. Sir. I'll wait as long as it takes. Hours passed. The receptionist changed shifts. The new one, an older woman with kind eyes, brought him coffee. You've been here 8 hours. Whatever it is, it must be important. It's everything, Damien replied. She studied him. Tuesdays. Margaret's daughter visits every Tuesday afternoon. Around 2 o'clock. It was Friday. Damien had 4 days to wait. I'll be back Tuesday. Most people say that. Few follow through. I'll be back. I promise. Tuesday morning, Damien drove back to Riverview. At 1:45, a car pulled into the parking lot. Freya stepped out. She was showing now. Not dramatically, but enough that the swell of her stomach was visible. She looked tired. Beautiful and tired. Damien's breath caught. The sight of her hit him like a physical blow. He got out of his car slowly and walked toward her. Freya froze when she saw him. Her hand went instinctively to her stomach. Her expression cycled through shock, fear, and something that might have been longing. What are you doing here? She asked. I needed to see you. To know you're okay. I'm fine. Now leave. She tried to walk past him. Damien didn't block her path. Please. Just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, and if you still want me gone, I'll leave. I'll never bother you again. Freya turned to look at him, really look at him. Her eyes scanned his face, noting the weight he'd lost, the exhaustion that matched her own. Why should I? Because I've been in love with you since the first day you worked for me, and I've spent 7 weeks realizing that letting you walk away was the biggest mistake of my life. You've said that before. I know. But this time, I'm not offering you money or contracts. I'm just asking for 5 minutes to tell you the truth. Something shifted in her expression. Fine. 5 minutes. She led him to a bench outside the facility. She sat down carefully, one hand on her stomach. Damien sat beside her, keeping distance between them. I've been in therapy, he said finally. Freya blinked. What? Since you left. 3 times a week. I needed to understand why I'm so broken. Why I turn everything into a transaction. And what did you learn? That my parents treated me like an investment. Good grades meant approval. Success meant love. Failure meant withdrawal. I learned early that affection was something you earned through performance. So I built an empire, thinking that if I was successful enough, people would love me. That's not how love works. I know that now. Love isn't something you earn or buy. It's something you give freely. And I never learned how to do that until I met you. Freya was quiet, listening. You loved me for 3 years, and I was too blind to see it. When I realized what I'd been missing, I panicked. I saw your profile, and instead of helping you, I used your desperation. I told myself I was protecting you, but the truth is, I was just being selfish. It wasn't acceptable. I know. And I'm sorry. Not just for the auction, but for all of it. The contracts. The arrangements. Treating you like a possession. You deserved so much better. Why are you telling me this now? Because you were right. Love isn't enough if it's wrapped in ownership. I needed to figure out how to love you without needing to control you. How to be worthy of you instead of just trying to buy you. And you think therapy fixed that? No. Therapy helped me understand the problem. But fixing it? That's going to take time. Maybe more time than you're willing to give me. But I'm trying, Freya. Tears welled in Freya's eyes. What do you want from me, Damien? Nothing. I don't want anything from you. I want things for you. I want you to be happy. I want you to feel safe. I want you and our child to have everything you need, whether I'm in the picture or not. And if having those things means I'm not in your life, then I'll accept that. Just like that? You'll walk away. If that's what you want, yes. Because keeping you against your will would just be another form of ownership. If you're in my life from this point forward, it needs to be because you choose to be. Freya closed her eyes, and the tears finally escaped. I don't know if I can trust you, she whispered. I know. I don't know if you're capable of loving me the way I need to be loved. Then let me prove it. However long it takes. And if you can't, then you'll know I tried. They sat in silence. A breeze rustled the trees overhead. My mother's doing better, Freya said finally. The treatment worked. She's in remission. Relief flooded through Damien. That's good. That's really good. Because of you. The money you paid me. That's what saved her life. No. Your courage saved her life. Another silence. Then Freya spoke again. I don't know if I can forgive you yet. That's okay. I don't know if we can ever be what I wanted us to be. That's okay too. But I don't want our child growing up without a father. I don't want to deny them the chance to know you. Hope bloomed in Damien's chest. What are you saying? I'm saying no contracts. No money. No obligations. If you want to be part of this baby's life, you earn it. I can do that. Can you? Really? Can you let go of control long enough to just be with us? It was the scariest question anyone had ever asked him. Could he love without control? He didn't know. But he was willing to try. Yes, he said. I can try. Freya studied his face. Then she stood up, and Damien's heart sank. Instead, she held out her hand. Prove it, she said. Damien took her hand, and it felt like being given a second chance. The next few weeks established a new normal. Damien drove up to Riverview every Tuesday and Thursday. They'd take walks, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about therapy. She told him about the pregnancy. The appointment was scheduled for the following week. Freya was 14 weeks along. Damien met her at the clinic, nervous. The ultrasound tech was cheerful, positioning the wand. The screen flickered to life. Their child. Tiny and perfect, moving slightly, heartbeat visible. Damien couldn't breathe. That was his child. His and Freya's. Would you like to know the sex? The tech asked. Freya looked at Damien. He looked back at her. Yes, they said in unison. It's a girl. Congratulations. A daughter. Tears slid down Damien's cheeks. He didn't try to hide them. Just sat there crying while staring at the ultrasound screen. Freya's hand found his, and she squeezed gently. After the appointment, they sat in his car. A girl, Damien said softly. Were you hoping for a boy? I just wanted them healthy. But a girl. I'm going to have a daughter. You're going to be a father, Freya corrected. The weight of that hit him. Father. He was going to be someone's father. I'm going to fuck this up, he said honestly. Probably, Freya agreed. But I'm going to try. Every day, I'm going to try to be better. For her. For you. For all of us. Freya leaned her head back. My mother asked about you. What did you tell her? The truth. Most of it. That we worked together. That things got complicated. That you're trying to be better. What did she say? That any man who drives 3 hours twice a week without expecting anything in return is either a stalker or someone genuinely trying to change. She's cautiously optimistic you're the latter. Damien smiled slightly. Only cautiously. She's my mother. She's allowed to be protective. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Freya spoke again. I need to come back to the city soon. I need to figure out work, living arrangements, preparing for the baby. Damien's first instinct was to offer solutions. But he caught himself. That was old Damien. What do you need? He asked instead. Freya blinked, surprised. I don't know yet. I need to figure out what my job situation is first. You do. HR put you on medical leave. Your position is waiting. You told them I was on medical leave. I wasn't accepting your resignation. You were upset and pregnant. So I gave you time instead. Freya stared at him. That's actually really thoughtful. And also slightly controlling. I'm working on the boundaries. My therapist says it's a process. She smiled, and it felt like progress. 2 weeks later, Freya moved back to the city. Not to Damien's penthouse. Not to an apartment he'd arranged. She found her own place and signed the lease herself. Damien helped her move, carrying boxes without being asked, and left when she needed space. He didn't push. Didn't demand more time. Just showed up when she asked and stayed away when she needed him to. Learning to love someone without trying to control them required letting go of everything that made him feel safe. But he did it. Because Freya and their daughter were worth more than his comfort. Returning to work was surreal. Freya walked into the building on a Monday morning, 18 weeks pregnant and showing clearly. By the time she reached the executive level, she was sure the entire company knew. Damien's office door was closed. She knocked softly. Come in. Freya opened the door. Damien stood by the window, and when he turned around, his expression was carefully neutral. Miss Evans. Welcome back. Miss Evans. Not Freya. They were back to formal distance. Thank you, Mr. Cross. Medical leave is nothing to apologize for. Are you feeling better? Yes, sir. The exchange was painful. They could have been strangers. But then Damien's eyes dropped to her stomach, and something cracked in his careful composure. Just for a second. Just long enough for Freya to see the longing and fear and love. That's good. I'm glad you're well. The Henderson report needs updating. I'll have it ready by end of day. No rush. Take your time settling back in. She turned to leave, and Damien's voice stopped her. Freya. She turned back. He never called her by her first name at work. I'm glad you're back, he said simply. Me too, she replied. The weeks that followed established a new routine. At work, they were professional. After hours, he'd text to ask if she needed anything. Would offer to help. Would ask permission before coming over. Sometimes she'd say yes. Sometimes she'd say no, and he'd respect it. The change in him was noticeable. He was trying, genuinely trying, to be present without being controlling. Victoria Chen remained a complication. She noticed Freya's pregnancy immediately and made assumptions. "So you're pregnant? Congratulations," Victoria said one afternoon, cornering Freya in the break room. "Thank you. Must be difficult, being a single mother." The implication was clear. "I'll manage," Freya replied. Victoria opened her mouth to probe further when Damien appeared in the doorway. His eyes took in the scene immediately. His jaw clenched. "Ms. Chen, don't you have the marketing presentation to finalize?" "I was just offering congratulations." "The presentation. My office. 1 hour." It was dismissal, clear and sharp. Victoria left. When she was gone, Damien moved closer to Freya. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm fine. It was just office small talk." "That wasn't small talk. That was her trying to figure out if there's something between us." "Is there?" Freya asked. "Something between us?" The question hung in the air. They'd been seeing each other regularly for 6 weeks now. They were going to have a child together. But they'd never defined what they were. "I don't know," Damien admitted. "What do you want there to be?" "I asked you first." "I want everything. I want you and me and our daughter. I want to wake up next to you and know you're there because you want to be. I want to be your partner. I want a real relationship built on choice and trust and love. But I also know I haven't earned that yet. I'm still learning how to be someone worthy of what I want. So until I am, I'll take whatever you're willing to give." Freya studied his face. All she saw was honesty. Vulnerability. "What if I asked you to go to dinner with me?" she said. "Not as friends. As a date. A real date." Damien's eyes widened. "Are you asking?" "I'm considering it." "Then yes. Whenever you want. Wherever you want." Friday night. 7 o'clock. Small Italian place near my apartment. "Perfect." The smile that spread across his face was genuine and beautiful. Friday came with all the nervous energy of a first date. Freya wore a maternity dress that fit. Did her makeup with care. Felt ridiculous about being nervous. But this was different. This was choice. Damien arrived exactly on time, holding flowers. Daisies. Her favorite. "I remembered," he said. Freya took them, touched. "Thank you." The restaurant was small and intimate. They talked over dinner like they'd been talking for weeks, but it felt different now. More open. Less guarded. The conversation flowed easily. By dessert, Freya realized she was genuinely enjoying herself. This wasn't obligation or transaction. This was just two people who liked each other. After dinner, Damien walked her home. At her door, they stood awkwardly. "I had a good time," Freya said. "Me too. Maybe we could do it again." "I'd like that. A lot." Freya hesitated, then made a decision. She leaned up and kissed him. Soft and brief. Gentle. Tentative. A question more than a demand. When she pulled back, Damien's eyes were closed. "Was that okay?" she asked. "That was perfect." She smiled and turned to unlock her door. Before going inside, she looked back. "Good night, Damien." "Good night, Freya." She closed the door and leaned against it, smiling. It felt like a beginning. Finally, it felt like they were starting over the right way. What she didn't know was that Victoria Chen had watched the whole thing. Had seen the flowers and the dinner and the kiss. Had put together all the pieces. And Victoria was very good at turning information into weapons. The bomb dropped on a Wednesday morning. Freya arrived at work to find the entire executive level buzzing. She made it to her desk and found an email waiting. From Victoria Chen, sent to the entire board. Subject line: Workplace ethics violation, Damien Cross. Freya's blood ran cold. She opened the email. The message was professional, detailed, and devastating. It outlined an inappropriate relationship between CEO Damien Cross and his executive assistant. It mentioned the pregnancy. It painted a picture of a powerful man taking advantage of his employee. The board had called an emergency meeting for that afternoon. Damien's position as CEO was under review. Freya sat at her desk, staring at the screen. This was everything falling apart. Damien's office door opened. "Miss Evans. My office, please." She followed him inside. He closed the door. "You saw the email." "Everyone saw it. She's not wrong. Everything she said is true. I did have an inappropriate relationship with you. Money did exchange hands. You are pregnant. I abused my position. That's not the whole story. It's enough of the story. The board will want my resignation. You're just going to give up. What choice do I have? Any defense I offer just makes me look worse." He was right. The truth was damning. "What about the company?" "Marco will take over. The company will be fine." "And us?" Damien looked at her. "That depends on what you want. If you stay, you'll be dragged into this. But if you distance yourself now, claim I manipulated you, you can come out relatively unscathed. You want me to throw you under the bus. I want you to protect yourself and our daughter. Let me be the villain. It's what I am anyway." "No," Freya said firmly. "You're not the villain. You made mistakes. But you've been trying to fix them. And I won't let you fall on your sword alone." "Freya. The meeting is in 4 hours. When they ask me to testify, I'm telling them the whole truth. That will destroy both our careers. Maybe. Or maybe it'll show them that people can change." The board meeting was held in the main conference room. 12 members, plus lawyers. Victoria sat at one end, perfectly composed. Damien at the other. Freya had been asked to attend as a witness. The board chairman called the meeting to order. "We're here to discuss allegations of impropriety between CEO Damien Cross and employee Freya Evans. Ms. Chen, please present your evidence." Victoria did so with clinical precision. Dates of late-night meetings. Photos from the gala. Documentation of the medical leave. The timeline suggesting Freya had disappeared after their affair became known. It looked bad. When Victoria finished, the chairman turned to Damien. "Do you deny any of these allegations?" "No. They are all true." Murmurs around the table. However, Ms. Chen's presentation lacks context. The situation was far more complex than her email suggests. He explained. Not the full truth, but a sanitized version. He admitted to having feelings he'd suppressed for years. Admitted that when he learned she needed money for her mother's treatment, he'd helped her, and that help had complicated their relationship. Admitted the relationship became intimate and he'd handled it poorly. What he didn't mention was the auction. The contracts. He protected Freya, taking all the blame on himself. When he finished, the chairman turned to Freya. "Ms. Evans, is this accurate?" This was her moment. She could agree. Let him take the fall. Walk away. Or she could tell the truth. Freya took a breath. "No. It's not entirely accurate. The full truth is more complicated and reflects poorly on both of us." Damien's head snapped toward her. She ignored him. "I was desperate. My mother was dying, and I needed money. I made a choice to list myself on an exclusive auction site where wealthy men bid on companionship. Mr. Cross saw my profile and bid on me, winning the auction." The room went dead silent. "He paid a significant sum for one night with me. After that night, he offered me an extended arrangement with continued payment. I accepted. For 3 months, we maintained a private relationship outside of work while remaining professional during business hours. I got pregnant. The arrangement ended. I left." She turned to look at Damien. "But what Miss Chen's email doesn't mention is what happened after I left. Mr. Cross didn't pursue me. Didn't try to control the situation. He respected my decision. When he finally found me, he didn't demand access to his child. He asked for permission to be involved, and has spent the last 2 months proving he deserves that permission." Looking back at the board. Was our relationship inappropriate? Absolutely. Was there a power imbalance? Yes. Did Mr. Cross make terrible decisions? Without question. But he's also taken responsibility. He's in therapy working to understand and fix the patterns that led to his behavior. He's learning to be better. That doesn't excuse the ethics violations, the chairman said. No, it doesn't. But it provides context. Mr. Cross isn't some predatory boss. He's a broken man who didn't know how to love someone without trying to own them, and he's working every day to fix that. I'm not asking you to excuse what happened. I'm asking you to see the whole picture. Victoria spoke up. So you're defending him? After everything he did? I'm defending the truth. Which is messy and complicated and doesn't fit neatly into the villain narrative you've constructed. He bought you. I sold myself. There's a difference. I made choices, just like he did. Were they good choices? No. But I won't let you reduce a complex situation into simple villainy when the reality is so much more nuanced. The board members exchanged glances. Whispered conversations. Finally, the chairman spoke. Mr. Cross, the board will need time to deliberate. However, this situation is damaging regardless of context. Your position as CEO is likely untenable. I understand. For what it's worth, I never wanted this to impact the company. I'll resign effective immediately if that's what's best. That may not be necessary, Marco spoke up from the back. I have a proposal. All eyes turned to him. Damien steps back from the CEO role for 6 months. Mandatory leave during which he continues his therapy and proves he's made real changes. I take over as interim CEO. If, at the end of 6 months, the board is satisfied, he can return to a leadership position. And if he hasn't made sufficient changes, then his resignation becomes permanent, and I continue as CEO. It was clever. It gave Damien a chance at redemption while protecting the company. The board deliberated for 20 minutes. When they returned, the chairman delivered their verdict. Mr. Cross, the board accepts this proposal. You are on mandatory leave for 6 months, effective immediately. Do you accept these terms? I do, Damien said. Ms. Evans, you are also being placed on leave, paid, for the duration of your pregnancy and maternity period. When you return, you'll be reassigned to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Freya nodded. It was fair. Ms. Chen, your allegations were accurate but incomplete. This board doesn't appreciate being weaponized for personal vendettas. Consider this a formal warning. Victoria's face flushed, but she nodded. The meeting adjourned. Freya and Damien were left alone in the conference room. You didn't have to do that, Damien said quietly. Yes, I did. You could have let me take all the blame. We're partners now. Partners don't let each other fall alone. Something shifted in his expression. Hope and disbelief and love all mixed together. Partners, he repeated softly. If you want to be. If you're willing to keep working on yourself. I'll handle anything if it means having you and our daughter in my life. Freya moved closer, taking his hand. Then handle it. Do the work. Become the man you want to be. And in 6 months, we'll see where we are. And if I fuck it up, then you'll fix it. That's what partners do. Damien pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully, reverently. I love you. I've loved you for years, and I'll love you for the rest of my life. I love you too. Even though you're a disaster. I love you anyway. They stood there in the empty conference room, holding each other, and it felt like a beginning. Not built on transactions or contracts or desperation, but on choice. It wouldn't be easy. 6 months of separation while Damien worked on himself. The stress of a new baby. The complicated process of blending their lives. But they'd face it together, as partners, as equals. As people who chose each other, every day, without contracts or conditions. 4 months later, on a cold January morning, Freya went into labor. Damien drove her to the hospital, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. 10 hours of labor. 10 hours of Damien holding her hand and coaching her breathing and looking at her like she was performing miracles. Then, finally, their daughter arrived. Perfect and tiny and screaming. The nurse placed her in Freya's arms, and both parents burst into tears. She's perfect, Damien whispered, his finger gently touching her tiny hand. She wrapped her fingers around his, holding on tight. She has your eyes, Freya said. And your stubbornness, based on how she's screaming. They laughed through their tears. Later, when the baby was sleeping, Damien sat beside her bed and watched both of them. His family. His choice. His second chance. Thank you, he said softly. Freya opened one eye. For what? For not giving up on me. For seeing who I could be. For choosing me when you had every reason not to. You made it easy. You did the work. You earned it. I'm going to spend the rest of my life continuing to earn it. Good. Because this is forever. No contracts. No end dates. Just us figuring it out as we go. Forever sounds perfect. And for the first time in either of their lives, it did.